Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for The Expanse Season 6. In this video I will cover Season 6 of The Expanse as a whole. So I have to start with a spoiler warning for all of Season 6 of The Expanse. If you have not seen all of it, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, when I did my Season 5 review, I talked about how much I love Season 5, and I said it was probably my favorite season of the show. I still love Season 5, but I've kind of taken it back a bit that it's not my favorite season of the show. Maybe my second favorite, well, up to the first 5, behind Season 2. And, because mainly I thought that it was a lot of people complained about the Naomi stuff and how it took her too long when we were trapped on the ship, but that actually didn't bother me as much as maybe the Amos and storyline. I felt dragged a bit, and I find that less interesting to revisit on a rewatch. But you know, that's just me. But I still love Season 5, but I was maybe a bit overboard saying that it was the best season of the show. For Season 6, I'm going to say it's the best season of the show. Now, who knows, maybe a year from now I'll come back and change my mind and be like, actually it's not the best season of the show. I still like Season 2 better, because I named Season 2 of The Expanse like one of my favorite television seasons of all time. So now I'm saying Season 6 is better than Season 2, and so yeah, it's going to be one of my favorite seasons of television of all time. And I think here's the thing about Season 6 and why I like it so much. For one thing, I think the show, the writers just got so much better at crafting character stories and involving the character stories and keeping them going throughout the plot line. To be fair, I did really love book 6, Babylon's Ashes, the book that this season is based off of. I named that one of my favorite books as well, so that helps. But I think this elevated the material even from the book, the way that, because it had a lot more character moments between the characters that weren't in the books, that I think really enhance it. And so I think it's definitely better than Season 5, because I think a lot of people were worried that it was a shorter season, that they only had 6 episodes. But honestly, I think you only need 6 or 8 episodes to tell the stories that were told in books 5 and 6. And so I think 5 actually suffered from having 10 episodes, because it had too many episodes, and that's why the story tended to drag. Naomi was trapped on that ship alone for 4 episodes. And, Amos's storyline, for me, dragged as well. So I feel like a more succinct, a shorter season actually would have helped it. And I think the shorter season helps Season 6 here. I think had it had 10 episodes, that I might not have liked it as much. That the story would have dragged. I think it pretty much hit all the points. Now, could it been better if there were 7 or 8 episodes? Maybe, because there were a few points that it kind of skipped by. I think at one point there was a several month time jump, and it seemed to be some things they maybe could have benefited more from lingering on it and explaining it more. There was, of course, a moment in the finale that I felt rushed. That is after the Rosnate defeated the railguns in the ring space. In the novels, there was a much longer time when they thought Marcos was going to kill them, and there was no way out of it. And in the show, they breezed through this in one conversation in a minute, and that kind of irritated me, because that part felt really rushed. But For the most part, I would say the season did not feel rushed. Now, I've heard some opinions that people didn't like that there's only 6 episodes and that they felt the season felt incredibly rushed. I disagree. I think condensing book 3 the way they did into 7 episodes in the second half of season 3, I will always contend that felt rushed, especially Clarissa's turn. They've removed some characters that were in the books that I thought were crucial to Clarissa's turn, and then Clarissa's turn didn't make sense. Ashford, of course, is a much more developed, better character in the show, but his storyline didn't. They kept his storyline with his book storyline, which didn't match up to me anymore because they changed his character too much, and so like him killing Grigori, that always confused me, and doesn't, and everyone seems to instantly forgive him for that, and that whole storyline felt, particularly in the finale of season 3, felt very rushed. So I will contend that they did rush through book 3 and they needed more time to flesh that out. But book 6, I don't think they rushed through it at all. I think they actually gave it a proper due. I think a lot of the stuff in book 6 were just like political meetings and stuff like that, which you could cut out and you could do without. And then there was also a lot of material in book 6 that they put forward into season 5, such as Drummer, who of course is a stand-in for another book character. Drummer and her family, and her rebelling from Marco, like all that stuff was in book 6, but they pushed that forward to book 5. To season 5. And so since they had and there's other things actually that they also pushed forward to season 5. So when we get to season 6, I think 6 episodes is all they need to tell the story. And I actually think, honestly, I'm going to say I think this is the best paced season of The Expanse, period. Because season 1 moved a bit too slowly. Season 2 had its... which is why I think season 6 better than season 2, is that season 2 kind of dipped after they finished covering the book 1 material. Season 2 kind of had a couple of filler episodes. That stupid one with the Martian guy discovering Epstein Drive, and it dragged a little bit too much in the middle of that season. Season 3, I already talked about how the second half was incredibly rushed. Season 4 is actually might be the other one that is the best paced, but season 4 also tend to, it was following a book that was my least favorite book of the series, so it had that against it, but it did also tend to drag with them being trapped on Illis for too long, and everything just kept going wrong, and this is going wrong, even though it was following the book in that chase. I think it dragged a little bit, but I would say it was probably the second best paced season. And then season 5, I already talked about how the Naomi trapped on the ship was too long. Just the second end of the season tended to drag out a bit longer, and it would have been helped if it was more succinct. So I will maintain and stand by, and I know a lot of people who feel season 6 is rushed will disagree with me, but I feel like this is the best season. That they found like the perfect, actually having it in 6 episodes, which is something the creatives of the show actually didn't decide. This was decided by the studio, but I think it was a godsend, because they said that the storylines that they cut out in order to condense it into 6 episodes was mainly they had an extended storyline for Prax and an extended storyline for Anna, both of which I think would be unnecessary. It would have dragged the season down, because you get the brief cameos from both characters, and that's all you need. A nice callback of what they did, and to have an extended storyline from each character would have dragged the show a bit. Now, as I said, there were a few moments that felt a little bit rushed that maybe they could have spent more time on, but to me, these are not huge issues and do not compare with the issues of previous seasons, which I think were much worse. So, I think this is the best paced season. I don't care what anyone says. I'm throwing it out there. And not only is it, as I said, not only is it the best paced season, but it also is one of the most powerful. It has some of the best space battles the entire show. It has the best character arcs. And the other thing is like it really does an amazing job of ending the show. Now, this probably isn't going to be the end. I'm sure there's all these rumblings that they will somehow adapt books 7, 8, and 9, but it could be a sequel series, could be movies. We don't know at this stage. Maybe they'll just continue the show, but I think it very well could be the end of the show, and they're calling it the end of the show. And it felt like a really great end for the characters. It felt like particularly the characters of Holden, Avasarala, Naomi, Bobby, Amos. It felt like the ones that we really care about and follow, that they had complete arcs. And Drummer as well, not forgetting her. Like, her arc was also amazing. That it was completing the arcs that they all began in season 1 or 2. And that it really was like a satisfying conclusion for all the characters. And so it's one of the best final seasons of any show ever. I'm actually throwing that out there. And I also mentioned, I'm standing by, that the finale, the series finale, is one of the best series finales of all time. It's in my top 3, maybe even my number 1. But I'll have to think about that one a bit more. But yes, I love this season. I thought it was amazing. So let me jump into some of the specific stories. We got the Rosnate character arc, which I thought worked really well. The season started with the Rosnate getting beaten. They were doing like these odd jobs, and they were all losing morality. It seemed a little bit like it was repeating the point, because this is kind of how season 3 started. and of course, Naomi didn't get along with Clarissa, and they were all like starting to, get heated and not sort of come to heads. But then when they found a way forward, they found a way to move past the stalemate that Marco created and destroy his ship that were sending the rocks to Earth, thus freeing the UN fleet. Bobby comes on board, and she's like an added breath of air, and then they actually have that huge win where they destroy that ship. And are able to, free up the war and get more involved, and everyone's morale go up. Bobby's starts to become like a bona fide member of the crew, which by the end of the season she is, which I love. And I love because I talked about this before, how Amos always has a character that he bonds with in each season, and in season 1 it was Naomi, season 2 it was Prax, season 3 it was Anna, season 4 it was Way, season 5 it was Clarissa. Now, they did show a bit of the Clarissa and Amos bond this season as well, but I feel like season 6, the main focus of Amos' bond was with Bobby, and that was amazing. That was a great choice, because we hadn't really seen Bobby bond with any of the Rosnate crew previously, except for Alex, who, of course, is dead now, and so it was so great, actually, having this Bobby-Amos relationship, which led to them, hanging out in the bar, and Amos inviting her to go to a brothel with him, which they were ambiguous of whether or not she did. I think they should have said yes, but I'm going to assume that they did otherwise, which is great. But then you had that finish with them in battle where Bobby goes to sacrifice herself, and she's like getting shot up, and then Amos comes up and saves her and protects her. It was a beautiful, well-earned moment for these characters. And that Bobby, she always, ever since she got disillusioned with Mars back in season 2 and realized that they left her and her team to die, she had always felt like she never really had a home. She always felt displaced, like she had mixed loyalties, but it feels like that's how her character arc is complete now, because she feels like she finally found her home in the Rosnate, and her loyalties are clear. So it was a beautiful character arc for her. And then Clarissa, what they did with her this season, I complained about what they did with her in season 3, and I will maintain those complaints. But what they did with her this season was amazing. Like, they actually really completed this character redemption arc and really made you feel for her and root for her. And I love how, like, Naomi, of course, was very, hated her at first, but eventually Naomi came to realize that she was just carrying over her jealousy. She was jealous of Clarissa because Clarissa was getting to redeem herself or wash the blood off her hands, and she wanted that for Philip. And once she realized what she was doing, she realized that it was a good thing of what Clarissa was doing, in the way that when Clarissa risked her life to save the ship when they were in battle, and Naomi sort of hugged her and they were part of the crew. It was a well-earned, beautiful moment. And that at the end, Clarissa, of course, had the matching pins she made for her and Amos, showing that they were a team. It's just, again, like, really well-earned, beautiful, touching character arcs. That's amazing. And then Naomi's character arc, of course, was also really powerful this season, because she had suffered a lot of trauma in the previous season, and the season begins with her suffering from PTSD, having panic attacks, and also, like, just being miserable that they're going around, like, killing Belters, people that she used to support and love, and the effect it had on her. And that was amazing how that, but she grew in her character arc. In fact, and I'll talk more about Drummer later, but her conversation with Drummer, trying to convince Drummer to join forces with the UN, that I believe that actually helped her overcome, and her to see what she was doing was right, and her to see to overcome her feelings of remorse over attacking the belt, because she was starting to realize that she was doing the right thing and she was on her own side. And of course, throughout this was her relationship with Holden, and how he was an anchor for her, which is amazing. And I think he grew a lot, but I'll get to him shortly. But he was able to put his own feelings aside and support her. But they did it in a way in which Naomi didn't feel like she was just like Holden's girlfriend, which I feel like is a complaint of the books. And I think actually that is something the books do rely too much heavily on, her just being Holden's girlfriend, where she felt more independent in her own character in the show, particularly this season. And then, of course, by the end of it, she has the strength to, in her mind at least, let go of her son, and actually pushes the button that in her mind would kill him, in order to stop Marco from dragging out a war for centuries. In order to end the war and to save a lot of lives, she sacrifices her own son, and she's miserable about it. And again, such a powerful moment. And then the way that they end the whole show with a Naomi speech with a montage, like, it's tradition on Expanse, and it was so beautiful. And of course, in this one, we do find out that Philip actually didn't die, but she doesn't know that, and her speech kind of reflects that she will never know that, because her helping him and guiding him to make the right decision, she didn't do it for herself, she did it for him, and it was successful, even though she'll never know. Very beautiful, very touching. And then there's, of course, Holden, who his character arc is also absolutely amazing this season. Yeah, he's also, ground out and beaten, and he has this naivete to him. Like, he's always more concerned with the bigger picture than all the infighting. And so when he hears about these, aliens that destroyed the proto-molecule creators, like, starting to pop up and disappear ships in the ring gate, that's his chief concern. And again, he goes to Avasral and makes a naive suggestion that they team up with Marco, but I think Avasral kind of pulls him to reality, saying that's not realistic, that's not going to happen. So he realizes then that the best thing to do is to defeat Marco, then they can better deal with these aliens. So then he throws himself into doing that, and then of course there was the moment where he could have killed Marco, but decided to disarm the missile because he saw Naomi's son on the ship, and he just couldn't do it. Like, he just wasn't that person, and almost drove the crew apart. And like Amos found out, and he almost left the crew, but Bobby sort of brought him back, and they sort of came back as a family. And I think the scene in the finale that shows them like eating the meal, sharing the meal, shows that they are truly a family, and that they got their shit together and they went into battle and did what they needed to do. Yeah, and so that was absolutely amazing. And then, of course, once the battle's resolved and they defeat Marco, there's the political mess to clean up, and how do they make sure that this doesn't happen again, that the Belt and Earth and Mars can live together and be in peace going forward. And so they come up with the idea of doing a transport union. That way the Belters will have their something to do, something meaningful, and earn them wealth and the place in the galaxy. However, the Avasarala wants to make Holden the president because they refuse to have Drummer do it, because they say Inners would never accept Belters controlling this. And so Holden agrees, but then he does this sly thing, which is absolutely amazing, where he actually conspires with Drummer and says one of the conditions of him taking the president is that Drummer's his vice president, and his first action is to resign to make her the president. And this is really strong character growth for Holden, because Holden has always been sort of trying to do the right thing and doing what's right and being honest to a fault. Like, he was always honest to a fault. This is a problem Miller had with him, and this showing him that he has grown because he was able to lie and deceive in order to accomplish what needed to accomplish. And I think he actually gained Avasarala's respect, because at first she was furious with him, and then but he was made it clear. It's like, look, because she couldn't do it because she knew it was politically not viable for her to make Drummer the president. But through Holden's trickery, he found a loophole in order to make her the president. And he's like, that this is what needs to happen. This is the only way the Belt will accept us. This is the only way we can move forward in peace. And she recognized that. So it was such an amazing, character finish for Holden. Like, it felt his arc was complete in this moment. And it was so damn beautiful. And of course, ending the whole show on Holden and Naomi bonding together. Like, I've said it before, their romance is one of the most realistic and strongest and best in all of fiction. I will say. And so it was a beautiful moment to end the show on. So we got a couple other character arcs. We got Marco and Naros and Philip. And I think a lot of people were saying that their stuff was the least interesting part of the season, and I may agree, but I still liked it. I still loved it because it was, again, a great character story, because it was mainly about Philip starting to see Marco for who he truly was, because it started the season where he's on Ceres saying, I'm going to make this the capital, I'm going to help you, I'm going to defend all Belters, screw the Inners, and the first thing he does is abandon them and steal all their food. And of course, some of the Belters start to realize this and see this, but others are still so blinded by their support for him. And plus, he has now this stranglehold on the Belt where he kills anyone who outright defies him, i.e. trying to kill Drummer. So others are just too scared of him to defy him. But he actually is a good tactician, because he comes up with a lot of good tactics to defeat, or at least keep the Inners at bay, even after they have their fleet is no longer pinned on Earth and they're free to go through the Belt. He still has the strategy of every time that an Earth, UNN and Martian fleet is about to go, get him at the locations he abandons the location and strips it of anything worthless, leaving the UNN and Martian fleet the choice to either feed and use their resources to protect the civilian population there, or to let the civilian population die, which is quite a dastardly freaking tactic, but it works. And then Marco comes to his situation because he gets the railguns from Laconia and is able to protect the ring space. He gets to a situation where he can fend off the UNN and Martian fleets for indefinitely and create a long war. And I like, Bobby sort of spells it out that there's no way that Marco can win, but he can make the war drag out and last centuries, and lots of people die and be killed because of him. Because he had created this situation, this impossible situation that made it impossible for the UNN and Martian forces to win. So, yeah, he was a great tactician in that account. However, of course, he was egotistical, narcissistic, and arrogant, and which is why when he saw the Rosinante, he wanted to defeat them. For one, he couldn't stand the fact that the Rosinante got away from him in season 5, and for two, he's jealous of Holden that some inner stole his the one true love of his life away, and so he wanted to kill them against this, the recommendations of his, second in command, Rosenfeld. And Rosenfeld was an interesting character. But Marco let his ego get the better of him, and Philip was starting to see that. He could see more and more that he wasn't actually truly a friend to the belt, or didn't care about the belt, that it was all about his own ego. Now, Rosenfeld, I love the introduction, the inclusion of this character who's very different than the book counterpart, and she was like a sort of smarter, more wise politician, I would say, or military soldier, and so she knew, and she was quite cold too in her findings. Like, she had no issue with Marco leaving people in Sirius to die, but she could tell where Marco's ego was getting in the way, and she had no attachment to that, and she was actually a really good anchor for him. And it was actually kind of sad when she died at the end, so that was another great character to include in this moment. Another moment in the show I forgot to mention that I was probably in season 6 that was probably a little damper on it, was that I thought stretched on for too long, was the stuff with Philip being friends with the other guy on the ship as they were just holding rocks or whatever, they were repairing the hull or whatever. That's stretched on for a bit too long for me. Like, to me, they could have cut that back and spent more time on the other thing after the finale, but whatever. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it ultimately did contribute because Philip could see who that guy loved his brother, and found out that the bombs that he set were used to kill his own brother, and how Marco was the one who tricked him into doing that, and so that actually pushed Philip even further away from Marco, which eventually led to him abandoning Marco, which was quite smart because he did it right before Marco died. And I actually love that Marco felt his victory was complete, and he made this big speech about how the Inners will lose because because the Rosinante had a plan to go into ring space and take the railguns from Marco so they could use the railguns against him, but in the process they destroyed the railguns, so they were left helpless and defenseless, and Marco had all these ships. All he had to do was go in and win, so he felt all confident and made this huge speech. But then Naomi comes up with a plot unbeknownst to him to use the angry aliens in order to kill him, and he has no idea until the very last second that he had been defeated. And hearing him yell "Veer off" was amazing. And I thought it was amazing just seeing him slowly disintegrate from the aliens killing him. Like, that was a very satisfying death for me, and I thought it was a very satisfying end to this character, who I think is one of the greatest villains in fiction. I freaking loved his portrayal. I thought the actor did an amazing job, and I thought this was a really well developed, really interesting, really realistic villain. Like, it seemed like the way a lot of dictators and revolutionists are in real life. So I thought it was a really true to life villain. So I did actually ultimately love the storyline. Of course, I love as I talked about already, the Philip getting away and changing his name to Philip Nagata. Also, beautiful moment. So, we also had a storyline with Kamina Drummer, and again, Drummer is one of the best. She's gone to be one of the strongest, one of the best characters in the entire show, and she just started out as just like a side character, and I did really think her storyline was strong as well because she started off this season in even more of an impossible situation, where she was being hunted by bounty hunters, and the situation looked really bleak. Like she didn't have anywhere to go. She was gonna have to like run away to the far reaches of the solar system in order to get away from all the people that were trying to kill her. But she ends up meeting up with Walker, a former member of Golden Bough, and she starts to see an opportunity because he has information about all the resources and storage that Marco is hoarding from the belt. And so she comes up with a plan to rob it. And so she gets the support of Golden Bough, or the ones who rebelled against Marco, and she starts to build a fleet. And then she executes the plan to rob the resource, which doesn't go perfectly because her lover and fellow crewmate Joseph loses his arm in the situation, which is also really tragic. But I love the dynamic between Joseph and Michiru, because at first I thought they were going to write Michiru off the show because Joseph wanted to get rid of her off the ship because they thought she was useless, but it turned out she was actually very helpful in saving his life when he was in that situation, and she really was brave and really stepped up. So she was brave in her own way, and then of course Drummer did have to say goodbye to them because when Michiru decided to stay on series with Joseph to look after his recovery, which was not going as well as planned. And so that and so Drummer felt like her desire to get back at Marco had pushed him away, which wasn't true, but it was a really nice story. But of course, the moment after Drummer pulled off the heist, and she lost a couple of members of her crew, she made that sort of announcement, made that recording that she sent out to everyone, calling Marco a coward, a traitor, and how he was, left the people of the belt to die and starve, and that she was taking his resources in order to feed the belt, and ended it with live shamed, die empty. Which is amazing, and I love that. I think that's one of the greatest moments of the show. It really had me like empowered and cheering, and that she had that huge strike against him. But moreover, because in the next episode, Marco's like, or Rosenfeld tries to dismiss it as, oh yeah, she attacked an empty supply depot, and she thinks that makes her a hero. But the truth of the matter is that it did show the belt that Marco wasn't with them, and that she was, and so really half the belt started rebelling and pushing up back against him because of this. And it was also proved to Avasarala that how important Drummer is, and that she was the key to defeating Marco, and she was smart enough to see that, and it was just such an amazing key moment that I loved. And then of course you had Avasarala trying to court her, and which she was very resistant against because she doesn't like the inners either, and didn't want to just be be under their collar or whatever. But it was Naomi that had to convince her. And that conversation that Naomi had, like, that was beautiful. That had me in tears. It was such a great crescendo to their character arc as well, because Drummer has had this unrequited love towards Naomi, and that Naomi would kind of use that, use her wise words to convince Drummer to do the right thing and join forces with the UNN and Martian fleets. And I love how the Drummer knew what she was saying was true, and kind of resented the fact that Naomi had manipulated her once again, and was saying fuck you while she was crying and hugging her. Like, that was just an amazing, beautiful moment. And then of course we see Drummer in battle, with Marco, because she thought they thought they were attacking a defenseless one of the defenseless parts of Marco's fleet, but instead it was his flagship that he was hiding, and he like easily destroyed her fleet. And to see her like that giant hole in the side of the hull when she was sitting on the ship and most of her crew is dead, and then she was willing to sacrifice herself, but then Walker beat her to it, which again Walker barely appeared in the season, but he was such a great character, had such a great personality, and it was actually a powerful moment when he sacrificed himself. And then of course Drummer becomes the president of the transport union. And again, I love how she totally fought against that. Like Avasarala is trying to say we should do this equal, 3 equal sides, but Drummer keeps pointing out we tried this before and you always fail. Like it's okay. You give us a voice as long as you control a comm. You give us a vote as long as we can always be voted down, which she was absolutely true on. And Holden could see this, and so that's how they teamed up together. And I love how Drummer gave Holden that like nod of appreciation after he stepped down. And it was such an amazing end for Drummer. Again, this led to her becoming the president of a transport union, which is going to be a powerful organization in its own right. It is what is going to bring the belt and empower the belt and bring it out of poverty. And she's the one who's going to run it. And I think that's the perfect ending for her character arc. It's so good it almost has me in tears. Alright, so what else did we get this season? Avasarala, her character arc, she was more of a side character, which I'm fine with. I think I liked her character arc this season. It did show. Again, this is a great way to show how she grew throughout the entire show, because at first, and they even called back to the first episode where she was torturing Belters and she was like, Earth must come first. And she was this voice of reason here when a lot of the fleets just wanted to go nuts and on the belt or abandon the civilians to die. But she was always the voice of reason. She always knew that wasn't the right way to do it, that the right way was to move forward together. And in fact, she recognized that immediately with Drummer, so that's why she kept trying to court Drummer, but at first she was, being coy about it. Wasn't being very smart about it, I should say, that she's trying to say, oh, Drummer, why don't you come over here and talk to me? And of course she didn't want to, and so she had to prove herself. She had to go into a civilian, probably poor area of Sirius Station and meet with Drummer personally, and she really showed her conviction of wanting to make this work. And so that was a big, huge growth for her. And it also happened throughout the season with Monica Stewart kind of pushing her in that direction, because Monica Stewart at first did a piece that showed how devastated Earth was to elicit sympathy for the belt. But then she did more pieces of just normal belters in order to elicit sympathy from the inners as well, to sort of show both sides and that they're all equally as weak. And that really got Avasarala to see that is the only way they're going to move forward. So yes, that was pretty awesome as well. So the other thing we got this season was Laconia. Now this storyline is probably the most controversial of them all. Where at the start of each episode we got a couple minute snippet, which doesn't have anything to do with anything else that's going on, and it forms a short story of a young girl who wanders out in the woods and finds these protomolecule dogs, or strange dogs that she calls them, that are obviously some kind of protomolecule technology. In the novels they will refer to these as repair drones. So basically they bring a bird back to life, a dead bird back to life, and she has a drone that she was using to fly around that got broken, and they repair that. And so when her younger brother dies, she thinks, oh, well, the dogs will be able to bring him back to life. And they do, but he is weird and different and has black eyes and black blood and starting to say stuff like substrate and see things in the blue proto-molecule thing, which to her, she doesn't really mind. She's like, this is my brother. He's back to life again. This is perfect. But of course, her parents didn't see it that way and thought that he was like some sort of creature or zombie and attacked him. And she was like so appalled that they were treating him that way that she ran out into the forest with him in order to get away from her parents. And then when he points out that without food, because she can't eat the food, anything on Laconia is poisonous to humans, she points out to her without food that she'll die, and she says it's okay, the dogs will fix me. Which is, it's really sad and tragic that she's basically sacrificing herself over this. Now, this is based off a short story, and I loved the short story. I thought it was very powerful. I don't think this is as good. And I do think maybe this should have been like its own sort of short film. I think splitting it up across 6 episodes maybe makes it a bit harder to follow, and the fact that it doesn't have anything to do with anything else that's going on. The only thing it does is we see characters like it introduces Admiral Duarte, who is the leader of this Martian splinter group that took over Laconia, and he of course appears. He's the one that gave the alliance to Marco and helped Marco win, and we see him in the finale tell Marco that, oh, you're on your own because you were a good distraction, but now I'm done with you. So, and it brings in Coltazar and his like weird experiments with the protomolecule, which is directly related to how these protomolecule dogs propped up. And of course, this is all set up for the books 7, 8, and 9 if they do ever adapt them. But I still feel like this could have been its own short film, its own like special, like in between, like give us something in between season before if they ever adapt book 7, 8, and 9, give us this as kind of a prequel to it to set it up rather than put it in season 6. Now, the showrunner Naren Shankar said the reason why he put it in season 6 is because he felt like the audience needed the protomolecule story to be continued in some fashion, because it's not involved pretty much at all in the main storyline. But I mean, I think most people feel like it doesn't resolve it, so it feels more like a tease for something that we may never get to see resolved, which is a common opinion that I've heard in response to this. And I kind of agree. Now, as someone who read the short story, I loved seeing it on screen. I loved seeing these characters. I thought it was filmed absolutely beautiful, and the actors did an amazing job. I loved the young girl that had to play Kara. She was just an absolutely amazing actor. But I still feel like it wasn't as powerful as the short story, and maybe it would have been had they made this its own thing. So maybe this is probably, I would say, my least favorite part of season 6, but it's not enough for me to think that it was a bad season. It's not like, say, for example, the whole flashback to the guy who invented the Epstein Drive, which I thought was a complete, utter waste of time and had nothing to do with anything. Whereas here, it's more, even though it's its own thing, it is more directly involved in the bigger picture of what's going on. It's just setting up for future events. And it's a more interesting story. In its own right, so it doesn't bother me nearly as much as this. I actually still liked it, especially as someone who read the books. It was great seeing it on screen, but it was still probably, I would say, the weakest part of the season. So, my rating for season 6 of The Expanse as a whole, of course, you know what I'm going to say, is a 10, the best. I still think this is the best season of The Expanse, one of the best seasons of television of all time. I think the pacing was amazing. I don't think it was rushed, except for in a few places. And that one place it was rushed, and the other place it went too long. But for the most part, the pacing was the best the show has ever done. And the character arcs were just beautiful. This was like a beautiful way to wrap up all the character arcs. You had all these beautiful character moments intertwined with amazing space battles, the suspense, and this through storyline that worked. This is like story crafting, storytelling at its best. Like, to me, I can think of few other seasons of television that are as good as this one. I was completely in love with it. Absolutely loved it, and people still compare this to Battlestar Galactica, and I think this is like only a million times better than Battlestar Galactica, in my opinion. Just saying. So that is it for my review of season 6 of The Expanse. I shall return this weekend. If you're watching this video when I first release it, I will be doing a live discussion joined by some special guests, Josh from Geeksiders, and of course my sister Alyssa from Alyssa Gina Reviews, as we talk about season 6 as a whole. I'll put a link to that event in the description below. If you can't check us out live, you can watch it after the fact in the archives. So yeah, it'd be great for you to join us in the chat for that. In about a month's time, I will be doing a rating every single episode of The Expanse from my least favorite to my favorite. At least that's what I'm going to try to do. So yeah, you can keep a lookout for that, and I'm sure I'll do some more future Expanse videos in the future. Also, I cover a lot of other shows on my channel, such as all things Star Trek, at the moment covering Star Trek Prodigy, and other shows like Star Wars The Clone Wars and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.